Welcome back to Movement Fix. In this video, we're looking at the standing straddle stretch, which is really important for stretching your adductors and doing it under a little bit of load. So if this is challenging for you, then you could go do something like the single leg standing straddle stretch. But if you want a little bit more challenge, a little bit of load, then the standing straddle stretch is the place to start. So working on your hip adductors, or the inner thigh muscles, is really important if you want to own your range of motion of your hip joints, if you want to have strength through large ranges of motion, if you want to squat and sumo deadlift well, and make sure that your adductors are prepared for the demands of those lifts. So here's how we set this up. You need to take a pretty wide stance with your legs. So this might be a little bit too narrow. So I might go this wide. Now, if you were to do a narrow stance, like stiff-legged or Romanian deadlift, like if you were here, the narrower your stance is, the more lateral hamstring that you're going to get. The wider the stance, the more medial hamstring and adductors you'll get. So really there's not that much difference between a standing straddle stretch and a Romanian deadlift or a stiff-legged deadlift, except you're just changing the width of your legs, which is changing the muscle groups that are under tension. So we can use this as a stretch. You could also add a little bit of load to it to make it into somewhat of a strengthening exercise. And then at some point it blends, where it's a range of motion exercise and a strengthening exercise, and it's harder to differentiate one thing from another. But here's how we'll set this up. You go into a wide stance. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna bend forward, but as you bend forward, you have to push your butt back. So think about someone hitting you in the waist, and you're gonna give way with it. And then as you give way with it, you're gonna continue going down as far as you can, trying to get your chest essentially parallel to the ground, and then come back up. So that would be 1 rep. So you could do this for reps, 10, 15 reps. And if it's too easy to do it like this, you just add a little bit of weight. So you take a dumbbell or a little kettlebell or a plate, hold it here, push your butt back, let your chest drop, get to the end, come back up, and just perform that for reps. Now, you have to make sure that you're not just bending your back. If you go down, what happens a lot of times, people get here and then they go farther by going through their spine here. But really you're trying to keep your spine in neutral and learn how to differentiate hip motion from low back motion, and also use core stiffness versus adductor tension. So you're developing a lot of different skills here while you're doing this, but you might have to film yourself from the side to make sure you're not bending your back, because probably 90% of people think that they're doing this without bending their back. But if you watch a video of yourself, you're probably bending your back. So you have to be really diligent to make sure you're doing it correctly, because the whole effect is if your spine is kept in neutral, that puts your pelvis in a position that maximizes the adductor stretch. If your back rounds, that rotates your pelvis, and that makes your adductors not under tension the way that we're trying to do with this particular drill. Now, it's easy to overdo this. This is not a beginner's drill. If you haven't done this before, you might want to get next to well, since we're outside, next to a tree. Or if you're in a gym, you can get next to a pull-up bar and grab the post and use that to kind of take some of the load off your legs. Or you could put a weight bench between your legs, which I call a just-in-case bench, because you would need it just in case something happens, you have the bench there. So when you're done doing your reps, like how do you know how many reps to do? There's no way anyone can say for this type of stretch, like you should do 10 reps, you should do 20 reps. You use the walk test, okay? The walk test is, once you're done doing it, can you walk around normally? If you can walk around normally, it was okay. But if you get up and you have to walk like this, you did too much. So use the walk test to make a judgment call on, did I do enough? Did I do too much? And then use that information to figure out how much to do the next time you're doing this stretch. So how often should you do this? I would say maybe twice a week before you're doing lower body days, squat days. Do like 5, 10 reps of this a couple times to prepare yourself for those lifts. Again, if you don't have a lot of squatting experience or deadlifting experience, this is an advanced drill. If you've been squatting or deadlifting and doing strength training, you can certainly do this. Start holding the rig or at the bench, because don't strain an adductor. It's not good. But you won't if you do it correctly and you use your judgment. So that's the standing straddle stretch to work on your adductors. It helps to build strength and flexibility through a large range of motion. Very important for squatting and wide stance deadlifting, among other things. So that's what I got for you guys this week on Move It Fix Monday. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We would love to have you there. And make sure to follow us on Instagram at the Move It Fix, and head to themoveitfix.com/resources where you can download the day 1 of our hip and low back mobility program, many of our other programs, and we have a lot of free educational content on there as well. So I will see you guys next week.